If you were 2-7, you'd be in a bad mood too.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. And he hits the upright again. That's impossible.
Get your mouth shut. Get your mouth shut, jerk.
The Bears' season's going to end on a double doink.
If Worms had machine guns, then birds wouldn't be scared of them.
Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to a Word Home Media presentation of the Limp Ditkas podcast. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. Welcome to the Limp Ditkas podcast at limpditkas.com and on social media at Limp Ditkas. We're just a couple of Chicago pricks united by our hatred of the Chicago Bears and University of Michigan football. This week, we've got your Dallas Cowboys victorious on Monday Night Football. We've got my Detroit Lions doing their best same old Lions impression that we've seen for the better part of 6 decades. We've got a big win for your Notre Dame Fighting Irish over the Big Ten. We've got a shaky at best win for my Michigan State Spartans. That was fun. We'll talk about we'll talk about the Bears a little bit too. The embarrassment in Chicago this weekend. Oof. Or no, was it in Cleveland this weekend?
It was in Cleveland. Cleveland rocked the Bears.
We're going to rip on Michigan, the University of Michigan. Then I've got some thoughts about the college football playoff that I want to talk about. So let's go ahead and talk about I think the biggest news of the weekend for the Limp Ditkas podcast is your Dallas Cowboys not embarrassing themselves at all on the national stage of Monday Night Football.
No, they really haven't embarrassed themselves at all this year. They hung with the only embarrassing thing that happened in game 1 of the season was the field goal kickers, Zerline's inability to hit some simple field goals. I
didn't mean to make you defensive there. I was saying I was comparing the Detroit Lions performance in the previous Monday Night Football being embarrassing.
But they have embarrassed themselves in recent years on national TV. Okay. So I was just saying, like, they could very well be staring 3-0 in the face if Zerline, the Greg the Leg, had taken care of business in week 1. But this game went exactly the way I thought it was. The Eagles are not a good football team, and Jalen Hurst is currently not a pro-level quarterback. And the Cowboys defense, who has the most you can't even fathom this after last season, has the most takeaways in the NFL right now. At this point last season, I believe we were like negative 11. I don't think we ever made it the plus side of takeaways. So the difference of one Dan Quinn is been noticeable. Funny thing was brought up last night on the telecast. They said, well, it's weird how life works, because if he doesn't blow a huge second half lead in the Super Bowl, he wouldn't even be with this team right now. He'd still be the head coach in Atlanta. And
yeah, it's true.
When you think about it like that, you're like, holy crap, he would. But he, he's come in and he's made a huge difference, and they were without 4 regulars on defense and still just pretty much manhandled Philly. I mean, 7 of the points was a fumble on a pass that fell out of Prescott's hands in the end zone that Philly just picked up and scored a touchdown on. So the defense totally took care of business. And something in the 2 Cowboys victories that was minus in game 1 for them was the fact that they've established a running game in their 2 victories. And as much as fantasy, I have Dak on my fantasy team, as much as I love from a fantasy standpoint, 400 yards and 4 TDs, if you can control the line of scrimmage, which the Cowboys have done the last 2 weeks, you can win a lot of football games. And while Philly's not very good, I don't think
neither is the rest of your division.
Yeah, neither is the rest of the division, but the Chargers are a decent team, and they took care of business up there with the running game. So I think they're trending the right direction. I think the NFC East is going to go through Dallas this year again, and I really don't have any. I really don't have any complaints out of how the game was called last night. Dak, it was Dak Prescott is that quarterback who has the option to call whatever play he wants when he gets to the line, and Philly was in this what they called like a 2 deep set. And they didn't do a very good job at disguising it. So when they had the safety sitting back high, he just called a running play, and we gouge them. They at one drive they averaged like 8 yards a play. I mean, it's just crazy. So I think overall it was over 5 yards, like 5.4 yards. So everything's looking good, and their first they do have Carolina this week at home. But I would say I'm not sure how real Carolina is at this point. So we'll
They're
get
kind
it
of rebuilding. I feel like they're just on the kind of hit rock bottom maybe last year and kind of back on the way up. But I think they've got a ways to go. So I think you're a more well-formed team at this point.
Yeah, but they are, they're 3-0, so they're coming here. They're not coming here because I'm in Chicago, but they're coming to Texas. So it should be a pretty good matchup and another good test for the Cowboys. And after that, I mean, if they win that game, I mean, I mentioned this why I thought they would easily win the division and be a playoff team is their real next test isn't until Kansas City in November. So, I mean, so
the 1-2 Kansas City Chiefs, who are showing some signs of some serious issues possibly. So,
yeah, so we all know NFL, like football's so easy to love and hate from a week to week relationship, not as forgiving as baseball because of the length of the season. So, but I'm pretty happy. Obviously, I'm in a very good football mood this week. So
clearly,
yeah.
I was wondering, did you watch the traditional broadcast on ESPN or the Manning broadcast on ESPN? I have not watched
the Manning broadcast yet, but I'm hearing rave reviews about it.
So did I, and I started watching it last night, and I kind of lost interest quickly because I really needed to hear what was the play-by-play, what was going on, a little more analysis. They were bringing the Mannings were giving their quarterback perspective, similar to what you get with Tony Romo and the CBS broadcasts. The problem is, Peyton's definitely got personality. Eli's feels like he's developing a personality this late in life potentially, but
I was going to say, correct. Well said. Well put.
I don't know. They're brothers. There's not a whole lot of chemistry. It felt kind of like watching our own Limp Ditka's videos. They're not real polished. They're clearly not professionals.
What?
They're definitely, their knowledge base is definitely light years beyond ours, but I'm not sure the presentation is quite there. They are, I think they might even understand that and admit that they are taking a 4-week break from the Manning broadcast. I guess or 3 or 4 week break. They're coming back in week 7, I believe. So I'm not sure what that means. They made jokes about how they were getting sick of each other. They couldn't deal with each other every week. So it makes sense, the sibling rivalry. But I don't know. I was ready to be blown away by the Manning broadcast, and I had to turn it pretty quickly. I went back to it again a little bit later to see if it was just early in the game or something, but it wasn't what I thought it might be. And maybe it'll grow on me, or maybe they'll change the format, or it gets better, but can't criticize too much. It's not an easy thing to do, but I think it's cool that ESPN is trying to do different things, get creative with that. They've got all the resources to have. They've got all the channels. They can do whatever they want on Monday night. So Why not do something cool?
Yeah, I agree. I did read one comment was like, if the game has little interest for you, check out the Manning broadcast.
That's what I thought. Yeah,
that was one comment I read on Twitter. So I didn't check it out because I had a lot of interest in the game. So.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, I guess. That's the thing. Like, yeah, you've got to be able to have the play-by-play to and the analysis right there, just kind of get the flow of the game. And I mean, you can see what's happening, but it's good to know other things other than, what the Mannings might be thinking at that moment. So
did you just real quick, and then we can move on. Did you see the reviewed non-touchdown in the game for the Cowboys where Dak looked like they had a shot from above where like he gets the ball over the line, and it really looked like he scored a touchdown, but then they didn't overrule it on the field. And I just was curious on your thoughts to it. In the end, it doesn't matter. So I'm not going to like lose. Yeah. I'm not going to get crazy about it, but I mean, it looked like a touchdown to me, but
this is weird. I 50% agree with you and 50% don't, because the one angle where it looked like he was clearly over is not definitive, because it was kind of from behind and you just sort of assume it went over it touched the plane of the goal line. The two angles that would show it, both pylon cams or whatever, from straight down the goal line, you can't tell a thing. The massive humanity covered it. So there was just no definitive evidence. I thought it was a touchdown initially, like on the live play. And then the first replay I saw was from behind. And it's like, well, yeah, he got over it. And then you can't, then you see another angle where you can sort of see him, and then you can't really see the ball. And it's like, well, that could be really close to the plane. And then the two definitive angles, just, you can't see shit. So I think so. The call, refresh my memory. The call on the field was no touch. Yeah, I think it was no touchdown.
It was the call on the field stands.
I think they had to. I think if one ref may have put his hands up, maybe he saw it, they would have had to stay with a touchdown at that point, because they just weren't going to be able to overturn it one way or the other, because just by the massive humanity, you're just never going to be able to see the actual ball across the plane, which is kind of crazy to think of. As many cameras as there are, and there was nothing that you could really tell. But
I guess they say like the problem with the like sort of like overhead shot, because it's not really completely centered overhead.
Why not? Why is it not?
And that goes back to what you said. Like, it kind of looks, you can say it went over, but it could just be the angle of the camera that makes it look like it goes over. So
this kind of
you would think they would just put a camera literally on both lines of the end zones for this reason.
Yes. Well, I mean, why? This is a multi-billion-dollar industry. This is the behemoth of the American world sports industry, and we can't figure this part out. It's silly. If you can't do it with cameras, put a goddamn sensor in both points of the football and have it triangulate with the actual plane of the goal line into infinity, and figure it out with whatever you got to do. That we should have the technology to figure this out. It should not be up to 65-year-old men squinting at a goal line. Well, that's what we're left with.
Yeah, it didn't really matter. It didn't matter at all. But but it's just about
it could at some point.
It could for someone else, and it's kind of, again, this replay in professional sports in lots of sports seem to have struggles. So, well,
you know who it will matter for at some critical moment?
The Detroit Lions,
and it will go against them invariably. The Detroit Lions. Yes, you are correct. Because that's just being the Lions. The Lions. The famous phrase in Michigan, and I've heard it my entire life, is same old Lions. And in fact, I own sameoldlions.com, and I run the Twitter handle Same Old Lions, SO Lions. And there's a reason I've had that for about 7 years now, because it just keeps happening and happening and happening in new and more creative ways that you would never imagine. And it's happened once again. I'll set the scenario. The Lions lost 19-17 to the Baltimore Ravens. Actually, surprisingly close game. The Lions actually had a lead with 64 seconds left, which was an amazing feat that I did not expect out of my Super Bowl champion prediction, Baltimore Ravens, and Lamar Jackson, my MVP prediction. It's looking a little shaky at this point if they're struggling to beat the Lions, but Lions held them to 16 points over 59 minutes and 59 seconds. And it was a valiant effort. The defense has looked, horrific in all during the previous regime over the last few years and the beginning of this season, and they really held their own surprisingly against what should be a potent Baltimore offense. But like I said, they held them to 16 points through most of the game, and Lions running game was okay. It was adequate. And in fact, they had a fourth quarter touchdown by Jamal Williams that actually you could say that was a reverse same old Lions moment, because it looked like his shin was down on the play just before he crossed the goal line, but they actually ruled it in favor of the Lions, a touchdown. So he almost gave you hope that things might be turning around under Dan Campbell, and we might not ever have to talk about same old Lions again. But alas, that was not the case. Lions, actually, back to the defense, they stopped the Ravens with a fourth quarter interception where the Ravens were on a scoring drive, and that's the Lions' first interception of the season. So that was cool to see that for a defense that hasn't done much, and it was a critical moment that eventually led to the Lions' go-ahead field goal, which there's been a lot of debate, and there's some debate in my mind at the time. The Lions got down the field pretty easily and got into the red zone, and then they looked like they were trying to kill some time as we got to the 2-minute warning, and ran some running plays to force Baltimore into using their 3 timeouts. And they may have only had 2 at that point, because I think they lost that challenge. But it was clear Dan Campbell's strategy was to bleed the clock, bleed the Ravens of their timeouts, and then try to kick a field goal to go ahead. It's a little frustrating as Dan Campbell, or as lots like to call him, Man Campbell, has came into this Lions organization guns blazing, the most testosterone ridden, kneecap biting, tough guy you can imagine, and when it comes down to the last couple minutes of a game, suddenly shrivels up and settles for a field goal. So it's a little ironic that such a tough guy, brave talk out of coaches that we see around the league, suddenly when things are on the line, they're not quite so bold. So there is some strategic acumen behind the thought process, but it's a little different than the brand he has put out there, that we were going to just be aggressive and everything else. And that was not the case. They did kick the field goal, 64 seconds left to go ahead, 17-16. And immediately on my SO Lions Twitter account, I posted 64 seconds is too much. And I kind of use that account to kind of troll Lions fans, or to troll overly optimistic Lions fans that seem to be new to this game, have not been watching the Lions for very long. But you just feel it. You can feel it anytime they don't get that touchdown, or they don't do extra shit to get the victory. It's going to come back and bite them. And of course it did. It didn't look like it was going to, as the defense stepped up again, eventually forcing a 4th and 19 way back in Ravens territory. At which point, inexplicably, Dan Campbell calls a timeout, and the Ravens were clearly rattled. They were going backwards. They had given up 2 sacks on this drive already, and the Lions defense was rolling. Campbell calling the timeout there to set his defense, to make sure his young players knew what he wanted them to do, was just a cardinal sin. I mean, it backfired immediately, as he wanted to prepare them for whatever was to come. He clearly did not, because immediately Lamar Jackson hooked up with Sammy Watkins for a 36-yard gain, putting them at the edge of field goal territory. And this is where things get really interesting, and even more into SOL territory, as it was I believe the play was out of bounds, so they came back in. Didn't have to snap the ball right away because the clock was stopped, but the play clock was winding down rapidly, and the play-by-play announcer was easily pointing that out. It was clear that we should all be looking at the clock running out, because it was within 2 seconds, 1 second, 0, no snap. 1 second later, 1.7 seconds later, somebody figured out Baltimore finally snapped the ball after the clock was 0. And for whatever reason, the referees missed a play clock violation, which would have given them a 5-yard penalty. This has been a big talk on Detroit Sports Talk Radio this week about how this is a fuck up. My point is, it would have pushed them back 5 yards. Lamar Jackson would have thrown for a 71-yard touchdown pass. One way or the other, they were going to win that game. But I could just see something terrible was going to happen one way or the other. But what did happen was unprecedented. Justin Tucker lined up for a record-setting 66-yard field goal. And 66 yards might ring in the minds of some Lions fans as when Aaron Rodgers set a record by throwing a 66-yard Hail Mary against the Lions in Ford Field just a few years ago that broke our hearts and was you could have it as another example of same old Lions because the previous play that set up that Hail Mary was a phantom face mask call against the Lions where the Lions rusher grabbed Aaron Rodgers' shoulder pad and Aaron Rodgers twisted his head and the referees assumed it was a face mask and it was clearly not upon replay, but they threw the flag setting up the opportunity for Aaron Rodgers, which he will always take advantage of, or anyone playing the Lions will take advantage of as similar scenario, the blown delay of game call set up the 66-yard Justin Tucker field goal, which went straight down the middle. I was surprised it was so accurate. I did not think it was far enough the whole time I was watching it. And as soon as it hit the crossbar, I just started laughing because I knew there was no chance. You'd think any ball kicked that far that hits a crossbar is going to bounce straight back onto the field. And of course not. It bounced majestically into the net even. It went way over the bar after hitting. Lions lose 19-17. And just another classic SOL moment. Add this to the pantheon. I mean, even in the last 10 years, add this to Calvin Johnson process of the catch in Chicago that has really set the precedent for no one understanding what a catch is anymore. There was no confusion about what a catch was until that play in the NFL, and they've somehow the Lions were exposed and all of it came at our expense. I mean, I could go through the whole list. I've posted, you can find these all at So Lions on Twitter. I've got them all there for you, but just another brutal loss. Jared Goff after the game said, had, chin up, had his optimistic leader of the team quote, "These gut punches will stop eventually." And I just had to laugh and feel like everyone that's watched the Lions for more than 5 years of their lives would just say the old Southern fling, "Well, bless your heart," meaning you naive fool. The gut punches will never stop. They've come for 70 fucking years almost. So I appreciate his optimism. I do not share it, unfortunately, but really, I really was laughing when the ball bounced through because this game doesn't matter. It's almost better that the Lions lose in the grand scheme of things. With the draft position, this is a lost season anyway. It'd be nice to see them win a game or two here and there, especially a win against the Baltimore Ravens would have been impressive, but they're actually better off losing, helping that draft status. So I don't know. I mean, it was brutal, but I've felt other SOL moments a lot harder than this just because the expectations are so different. But it's just amazing this shit keeps happening, and it will never, seemingly never will. And it only took 3 games into the Dan Campbell regime to rear its ugly head again. So welcome back, SOL. You are undefeated for 64 years now and counting.
I had text you because I have a theory. The reason the game was so close was because Ravens wide receiver Marquise Hollywood Brown had taken the Lions in the spread because in that first half, which I saw a lot of, he dropped two that were going for 6 balls that hit him in the hands.
The two that were going to score touchdowns were both on the same drive, so technically that.
That's true. That's true.
Should have been an extra 7 points for the Ravens right there, but not 14. But still, it was true. It was bizarre.
It was bizarre. I mean, I've seen like guys miss like oh shit, how did that happen? And some great guys have done it. Like I've seen, you've seen great players miss easy balls, but this
not 3 times in one
this
game.
This is like even Lamar Jackson's probably like, come on. I mean, I'm just putting it right there for you, buddy. Like how do you not hang on to it? So,
your theory is that he may have had money on the Lions somehow.
Yeah, I mean, geez,
interesting. It's the only plausible explanation.
I mean, seriously, it was. I was just like, and the week before he had 116 yards and 2 touchdowns or something.
Yeah, so, that's the other weirdest. Yeah, he was coming off a career game, and to have that's
so
the Ravens are a conundrum. I can't quite figure them out, but.
Yeah, they're always kind of a conundrum, but whatever. We're not here to talk about the Ravens anymore.
Well, I do have one more low light I want to bring up about the Lions game. It happened at halftime that involved Calvin Johnson himself, the aforementioned, him being inducted into the Hall of Fame. The Lions wanted to honor him at halftime by presenting him. I believe they were just presenting his Hall of Fame ring. Unfortunately, they chose to have Lions owner Sheila Ford Hamp do the presenting of said ring to Calvin Johnson, at which point the Lions fans took it upon themselves to mercilessly boo her. I believe she's in her mid-60s. It was a little gross seeing a crowd of 60,000 people booing an old woman mercilessly, but they basically drowned her out. They shouted her down. She was trying to say nice things about Calvin Johnson, and nobody could hear it because it was such a melee. It was just there's more to that story. There is a public quarrel going on. I was gonna say there. There's a spat there between Calvin Johnson and the Lions. Due to his premature retirement, they took back $1.6 million of his signing bonus of his final contract. And he has periodically gone on social media or on podcasts or different means to complain about that for years now. In fact, his wife is even getting involved on whatever platform she has. Just last week, I think both of them were in the news complaining about that $1.6 million that the Lions took back from them. So the timing of this presentation didn't work out well. It's quite strategic for Calvin Johnson to get his point across and have 60,000 people back him up. And just the general malaise of all Lions fans and ownership. Ownership takes the brunt of the wrath of SOL, mainly because they're the commonality over these 64 years now. The Fords have owned the team and everything else has changed, but we're still the Lions. So it's got to be the owners that are the problem. But unfortunately, the Fords, as we've talked about with all sports, owners are never going to sell if they don't want to. So complaining about ownership is a futile endeavor. It's not going to change. You're not going to shout the Fords out of. You're not going to boo them out of owning the team. They're not going to get rid of the team unless they want to. So there's no reason to even talk about it. Let's figure out a way to triumph over the Fords' adversity, I guess, is our only hope. But that's enough about the Lions. I mean, their next opponent might be even more hilarious franchise right now, as they will be traveling to Chicago this weekend to face the Chicago Bears.
The Bears.
who had a historic, I don't know, I'm assuming it set records of epic proportions in a negative light as they went to Cleveland and started Justin Fields for the first time, as the fans have been clamoring for all this time since he was drafted. And what a fucking debut for Justin Fields.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest issue is Matt Nagy.
Yeah.
And you have a quarterback much similar similar to Trubisky in that he's better throwing on the run, moving out of the pocket. What is your game plan? 5-step drops in the pocket.
Yeah.
You did not alter your game plan to play to your quarterback's strengths.
I would say
the future of the team, the future of the franchise. And you said, I'm Matt Nagy. This is my playbook. These are the plays we're going to run. I have confidence that you can execute them.
Executing them to the tune of 1 net passing yard.
Yes.
And 9 sacks.
Yes.
I can't imagine there's been a worse performance in NFL history. I haven't looked up the stats, but my God, there's a point at which the coach could be fired in the middle of a game, and that could have been it. Fortunately, I wasn't witnessing any of that. It's previewing the Lions game. The Bears are somehow a 3-point favorite still because they're at home and every home team gets 3 points. So
yeah,
it's a pick 'em essentially. Matt Nagy has shrewdly told the world that any of his 3 quarterbacks on the roster could be the starter this week. So it is throwing the Lions strategy into a conundrum, as they don't know if they should prepare for Nick Foles, Justin Fields, or Andy Dalton. I'm not sure it really matters, but
yeah, I think you just prepare for Andy Dalton.
Yeah, that would be logical. I forget now. Was he injured? Is that the reason why he didn't start this game?
Yeah, and what's crazy about the proof that like Matt Nagy is just spinning out of control and doesn't even know what to fucking do is 2 weeks ago he said healthy Andy Dalton is our starting quarterback.
No, he didn't say it. He had a PR person send a note out a half hour after his press conference to clarify his word salad comments that nobody fully understood. But yes, you're correct.
Yeah. Now, after a horrendous game, which I don't blame on Justin Fields, I blame on, again, someone not tailoring a game plan for him to succeed. I mean, you could have been running. They didn't even really run any FPOs in the damn game, like there were no like this is why he's there. He's a modern day quarterback. He's going to create problems for a defense if he becomes a running threat and then he's rolling outside of the pocket and you don't know what to do. You put the linebackers in a situation where they got to make a decision. Do I roll off the receiver or do I and go after the quarterback? Do I stick with the receiver? And it's usually, it's a losing situation because you're going to get positive yards. May not be a ton, but you get positive yards out of that play. And they did nothing to accomplish that or create that in the mind of Cleveland. In fact, I can't remember Cleveland's defender, but he actually came out publicly and said, if it was at halftime or something, he got interviewed or someone's interviewed at halftime. And it was just like, yeah, if Justin Fields if they do a whole second half of Justin Fields dropping back with 5 steps, we're just going to feast on him all day.
Mm-hmm.
Like they already knew the game plan. The Bears made no adjustments to it. I mean, it's just the thing that frustrates me about it is I do not like the Bears, but the fans drive me crazy because there's this they actually thought the team was going to be good this year. And they still have this idea that somehow a season's going to be salvaged from this mess. And so fitting for what you said about the Fords applies back here in Chicago too for the McCaskies. Like they're terrible owners. they do not invest properly in the team. And they keep hiring asshats to run the organization, and they're just going to continue to be terrible, which I'm fine
I
with.
think it's great.
But
Keep
it's
it up.
like to the way people think about them, the way Bears fans see their team and how it's run versus the way people who aren't Bears fans see the team. It's just mind-boggling to me that anyone who has that much passion for a team could be that blinded by it.
If they didn't have the 1985 Super Bears, they would essentially be the Lions.
True, you're 100%.
You could draw parallels. They did make a Super Bowl subsequently, but you could draw very close parallels if you could eliminate the 85 Bears. So it's amusing to me. I don't think a Bears fan would ever see that, or they'd be very offended if they heard me say that. Bring it on. I'll be in Chicago this weekend. I won't be there for the game, unfortunately, because I've sworn off ever going to Soldier Field again after that fucking Rolling Stones show 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was, where that place is such a fucking nightmare to get out of or get into.
No satisfaction for Smitty that night.
Yeah, but if the Bears were going to get right, it would be against the Lions. So I could see why it's essentially a pick'em game. I could see that game going numerous directions, positive and negatively. I don't bet, you're the gambling side of this podcast, but I would steer clear. My gambling advice is stay the fuck away from this game one way or the other. It has disaster written all over it for either side, but before we take our break and eventually get into college football, I do want to continue my obsessive LA Rams watch as they made the major trade with the Lions in the offseason for Matt Stafford, and which affects the Lions' first-round draft pick. And
the MVP of this year,
yeah,
Matthew Stafford?
Yeah, he's threw 4 touchdowns. They win again. They're undefeated. They're going to win the Super Bowl. He will win the MVP, and the Lions will get the 37th or 32nd pick from the LA Rams. So that's this week's update. We'll tune in next week where he'll have 4 or 5 more touchdowns and move closer to that undefeated season and the MVP. Just to rub Lions faces in it. So congrats, Matt and Rams fans. So we'll be right back. Unless you have anything else for the NFL.
Do you want to do my upset special of the week?
Oh, is that in the pros this week?
Since I enter with a 2-0 record, as
you've only done 2. I thought we did 3.
Yeah, I didn't do one the first week. I didn't do one the first week. We were coming back. Forget things. I forget a lot of things.
That's all right.
But yeah, so
PV's upset specials. What do you got this week?
Well, I just want to say, first of all, I hope you guys got in on that Atlanta action, because they took care of business as I said they would. I didn't say it'd be a blowout or anything. They would beat the Giants because the Giants would find a way to beat themselves, and that's exactly what the Giants did. They beat themselves in that game. But this week's upset special, I'm going to give it to you. The Raiders against the Chargers. The Raiders are 3.5-point underdogs. I can't see what the money line is right now. I don't know why, but the Raiders are red hot. The Chargers are playing well, but I think the Raiders offense is pumping on all cylinders. And
where's that game at?
It's at the Chargers, but that's not it's not far travel for them. It's not going to be like a real away game. And
how much of a fan base have they really built up in LA yet? And how many people really show up to Chargers games at this point? So I could see Raiders fans traveling well to that.
Yes, in their full garb, dressed like sort of like mutants out of the Road Warrior. So
it's the best.
Raiders look offensively very, very solid, and I just see them going in there and kind of stunning the Chargers this week. So that is my upset special. Take the Raiders all day long. The 3-0 Raiders.
All right. Well, we'll be right back with our.
Sorry, real quick. It's plus 160. So that's beautiful.
All right.
Take that.
You're breaking up anyway, so we're going to need to take a break here on the Word Hole Media Network.
Word Hole Media.
Major League A-Holes in the Hole podcast, where baseball opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, and most of them stink. Find us at MajorLeagueAholes.com and anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Word Hole Media.
All right, welcome back to the Limp Ditkas podcast. We're going to talk a little Irish football as the Shamrock Series game took place at Soldier Field.
What is the Shamrock? I saw that logo all over the field. What is the Shamrock Series? That's just like one
Notre
game
Dame,
a year?
Yeah, plays on they play in a neutral site.
And wear fancy uniforms.
And play against opponent normally somewhere from within that region or area.
So it's not that they're playing Wisconsin a couple years in a row. I see. I wasn't sure if it was them over and over. Some fancy marketing right there.
Yeah, which was really interesting. Like this year because they played in Yankee Stadium in that, and just a ton of Notre Dame fans showed up for that game over. I think it was Syracuse that time or something. It was just felt like a home game. And the cool thing about this game was, I actually think there were more Wisconsin fans there than there were Notre Dame games. Unfortunately for Wisconsin, that would not help them in the fourth quarter of what was pretty much a tightly contested, poorly played football game for both teams, and neither team could get anything going. I mean, the fact that Notre Dame, the final score is 41-13 is shocking, because I'll give you some really big numbers. Notre Dame's running backs totaled a whopping 39 rushing yards in the game. 39 total rushing yards on 20 attempts.
Yikes.
That is not good. The passing attack, the air assault, totaled between two quarterbacks, because starter Jack Cohen got injured, totaled a 239 yards through the air. Wow. Whopping for 2 touchdowns. The reason this game turned into a blowout is because Wisconsin offensively shit the bed and just decided to start throwing pick sixes to close out the ball game, and a big kickoff return by Notre Dame, a 51-yard, or was that a punt return? That scored a touchdown. So it was really a very evenly played game that neither team could really get anything going. I mean, I think Wisconsin totaled 74 rushing yards. Passing yards were neutral, 240 to 239. I mean, first downs were 17-16. But the biggest glaring thing is the Irish had 1 turnover and Wisconsin had 5.
Yeah, that'll kill you every time.
And that'll kill you. Yeah, it's going to kill you. And somehow, like, I watched the game and I was very happy it turned into like a blowout, but like I just had this like feeling the whole time, like even after they'd won and it looked like it was a lopsided victory. I had watched it. I knew it wasn't a lopsided victory. I knew it came down to 2 defensive and 1 special teams play that really made the difference in the fourth quarter. And Notre Dame still has like a lot of issues to address. I thought they actually played better in the Purdue game. What's fun about the world of rankings, because the game was such a blowout, they moved up 3 spots in both polls. So now they're 7 after playing a worse game than they did the week prior. They moved up 3 spots, and then they're 9 in the AP and 7 in the coaches. And, I sit there and I scratch my head and I thought they would have just left them in the same spot again, because
wow.
It is what it is. It doesn't like we've talked about a lot.
Because it's coaches that just see the score and see the record and see the score and just say, oh, we should move them up.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But this week they've got Cincinnati, which if Cincinnati is right there, they're ranked 7.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame's ranked 9 in the AP polls. So this is another test, another ranked opponent.
That's probably the national game of the weekend. It's 2 top 10 opponents, so that's gonna get a lot of press. When is that game? I'm assuming, is that a night game or is that an afternoon? Sorry,
I know that.
I thought you'd be all over this.
I thought I would too. I look at it Saturday morning. It's not like I do a podcast or anything. It's actually at 1:30. Yeah, just 1:30. Really? Yeah.
1:30?
Yeah, 1:30 because of.
I've never heard of a 1:30 start time.
Well, 2:30 in Indiana, but 1:30 here.
Wow.
I'm guessing because it's at home, so they're on the good old NBC.
They're not on Peacock.
No, they're not on the cock.
That would have been a mistake.
That would have been a mistake. So, yeah, happy they're 4-0. Happy the defense. That is a big bright spot of this game. I'm still very concerned the fact that they can't get a rushing attack going at all, really, over 4 games, barely. Again, Purdue game, they did have more of a balanced game, but what was nice to see is the defense 2 weeks in a row closed out the games. So maybe they're getting some props for playing solid defense against the Big Ten, but I don't know. I don't know how good the Big Ten really is. So that's in question, I think, still to this point in time.
That would be a big question. It's funny you mentioned that you're a little bit you're happy with the 4-0, but you're a little concerned about the 4-0 because I feel the exact same way about my Michigan State Spartans, who won this weekend 23-20 to Indiana, but it was the grossest feeling win I can remember because State had no business winning that game, and they were at home and looked like a disaster on offense in the second half. They went into the halftime with a 13-10 lead against the Huskers, and they did almost nothing in the second half. They had I think they only had like 15 plays. They had 6 minutes of possession. They had 14 yards of total offense in the second half with 0 first downs. Basically, Nebraska just completely controlled the line of scrimmage on defense, and State had no answers. The only thing that saved them was a punt return for a touchdown. The State's first punt return for a touchdown since 2011, which was, I just saw that tonight, that stat. I'm like, I guess punt returns are pretty rare for touchdowns, but I figured they'd have more than one in 10 years, but apparently not. But thank God they did, because that eventually forced overtime, which was literally the State's only chance. And of course, Adrian Martinez, I forget his first name, but I feel like there's been a Martinez quarterback at Nebraska for like 10 years now. I don't know if it's the same guy or maybe brothers or what's going on, but
it's the same
who knows?
guy.
Nobody knows they can do anything in Wisconsin or in Nebraska. There's nothing else happening there, but fortunately he threw an interception in overtime, which State almost ran back for a touchdown. And as he was running, I was calculating, like, I didn't know if that meant the game was over. I guess it would have to be immediately over. I'd never in college, I had never seen a pick six because it's just such a strange thing, but he was tackled like at the 20. So it was a moot point. Fortunately, my Heisman hopeful, Kenneth Walker III had like a 20-yard run on first down in overtime, setting up the game-winning field goal. Basically they had 2 plays that saved the entire game, which was pretty amazing. A frustrating win. I'm glad they got the win. But they're not a great 4-0 team. They have moved up to number 17 in the country now. That is definitely an inflated rating, I think. That's fine. I'm happy they're 4-0. I'm happy for Mel Tucker. He definitely is breeding, making sure his team shows resilience in all cases, because they stayed in the game and figured out a way to get it done. But yeah, I was nervous about the game because Nebraska is always tough. They always play Michigan State tough, even when they're having terrible years as they are this year. And that was definitely the case. So it was pretty cool to see Mel Tucker's group prevail. They have Western Kentucky this coming weekend, which is, sounds like a pushover, but they almost beat Indiana last weekend, and they almost beat, I believe it's Army before that. So they have one of the top passing offenses in the country, which could be a problem for Michigan State. We'll see. That would be an embarrassing way to lose your undefeated season, but if they are able to keep that going, they are at Rutgers and then at Indiana, which should be, in theory, winnable games. All of which means they could be undefeated when they meet Michigan at the end of October. So that's setting up interestingly. Unfortunately, I feel they're going to shit the bed in one of these three games somehow, just because I'm not having a whole lot of confidence in how they're playing, but we'll see. I mentioned Kenneth Walker the third. I have him on Heisman watch. He didn't have the greatest of games. He did have 61 yards on 19 carries, and he did have that key run in overtime that got him down to the goal line. He's still leading the nation in rushing with 554 yards, but that lead has shrunk dramatically, and he's still stuck on 5 touchdowns, where the leaders in the country are at 7 or 8, maybe 9 at this point. So he's got to get those rushing totals up and score some touchdowns in the next couple weeks, which I would hope he'd be able to do against the teams coming up to keep him in that Heisman race. But I mentioned the big intrastate rivalry. Sorry, I got to get my grammar right. With Michigan coming up on October 30th, and I'm not sure that Michigan will be undefeated for that game either, considering their performance. They had a 20-3 halftime lead and did absolutely nothing after that. I forget. I think maybe they had, I'm getting the total yards confused because State's was equally paltry, but did nothing. Well, I don't have the stats, but it was sad. They actually pulled out the victory, but against Rutgers, but it was not an impressive one. They are not able to throw the ball. They were not able to run the ball. They were not able to do much of anything. They are heading to Wisconsin this weekend, which the Badgers might be a little angry, might not be throwing the ball very much, considering what they did throwing the ball against Notre Dame, as you pointed out. I think they're going to run the ball a lot. At the same time, they have the nation's number 1 rushing defense. They are averaging 1 yard per carry giving up. They are the best by far. So that is going to probably force Michigan, who has depended on their running game thus far this season, force Cade McNamara to actually throw the ball a little bit. So that'll be a true test. He has not shown the ability to throw for a lot. Michigan has not. So I think this might be a rough weekend for Michigan. I don't know if you watched any of the Michigan game or had thoughts.
One could only hope. I did not watch any of the Michigan game, but I did still have it flowed so nicely. I just let you go, but I had one more Notre Dame thought, but you jumped right in with Michigan State.
Okay.
And this is newsworthy because you're probably aware of this, but Brian Kelly became the winningest Notre Dame coach of all time with that victory over Wisconsin. He passed Newt Rockne, and he did it in 12 years' time, and Rockne was the head coach for 20. Now, granted, we play more games now and stuff like that, so that's part of it. But he had he really made up for his execution quote. He had a really great quote because
the bad joke from
the bad
3 weeks
joke.
ago?
Yeah, he has a keeper of a quote when asked, "Where do you feel you sit now among the all-time greats of Notre Dame?" And he says, I'm the coach that won more games that hasn't won a national championship. That's where I'll sit.
Wow.
So he put it in
That's accurate.
perspective. Yeah, he put it in perspective. I like the honesty of it, just like the pure who cares? I won a freaking national championship here. That's why they brought me here. That's all that matters. So I like the focus. I don't think they have the team to do it this year. So he's definitely going to be sitting in that seat. But
enjoy that seat.
But yeah, I thought it's such a great quote. I felt we'd be remiss if we did not if I didn't mention it.
I'm glad you brought up Brian Kelly, as he is my alma mater's former coach at Central Michigan University. That's where we actually kind of built up his name at Grand Valley State, and then moved up to Central Michigan, where he had players. Was Antonio Brown there? I don't remember if he was there, if that was under Butch Kelly, but he definitely raised the profile of my Chippewas, taking us to several bowl games. He then went to Cincinnati, and then eventually to your Notre Dame Fighting Irish, with one goal: to win national championships, and he has yet to achieve that. But it's pretty cool that he understands that and is willing to say it out loud. I don't feel like he's, even if they have a down season, obviously I don't think they're going to win the national championship either, but he's not in like the hot seat or anything like that. He's not fearing for his job or anything.
No, I don't think so. I mean, because, you had the interesting thing of when you looked at, I went and looked at Notre Dame coaches, like Holtz actually was in over 10 if he had stayed in 11th season, he would have broke the record.
Yeah.
He amassed over 100 wins in 10 seasons there. So,
and a national championship.
And a national championship. So, but he had some really bad seasons after, that wasn't when he was rebuilding. That was at the end there. So, I think Kelly's fine because he has a winning culture there and a winning program. It just hasn't gotten over that major hump. And I don't know. Notre Dame may, in a way, sort of accept it because they are not going to lower their standards to be able to be Alabama. They're not. And that's it. That's the reality of the situation. So you got to hope that with your standards, you have that 1 year. I hope it happens. I do. Obviously, not just because I'm a fan, but I love Brian Kelly as a coach. He fits Notre Dame.
Unlikable, angry.
No, I find him completely joyous, and I love that. Again, he coaches his team how he wants to coach his team.
He actually is a lot more likable. He used to be such a red ass and it was of note, how angry he would get. And he actually, I think he made a conscious effort to not be so insane looking on the sidelines.
Yes.
Because it became a story after a while. And I think he's become a little more likable, as likable as anyone from Notre Dame could be, but
yes,
congratulations to him.
Yes, and he's not only is he the winningest coach, he's very likable now. He's warm and fuzzy.
Yes.
So anyway, that's enough about that. I wanted to make sure we got that in. So,
well, the only other big news of the week that I want to talk about with college football is a meeting that was supposed to happen actually tonight in Chicago, but it has been canceled. That was between the College Football Playoff Board of Managers, I believe is the name of this group.
I'm the manager.
Made up of university presidents and chancellors that were going to be in Chicago to vote on a proposed 12-team college football playoff that you may or may not have heard of. About 2 weeks ago, the news broke that it looked imminent that they were going to vote on that and have a 12-team playoff up from 4 teams. I'm not sure when that was proposed to start, but it sounded like it was almost a done deal until that meeting was canceled this week. And that is not happening tonight, as there was another meeting of college, basically the FBS conference commissioners and one other entity, I forget who it was, but some other college football board. They met in Dallas last week and realized they were nowhere close to being able to vote for a new college football playoff proposal because everyone has different agendas, and they were not going to come close to being able to get on the same page. The one quote from a source with knowledge of the situation says that meeting in Dallas was essentially an airing of grievances. That's great. Yeah.
Was it Festivus?
Yeah, it was like Festivus in September down there in Dallas. So it was to the point, it was such a horrible meeting that they canceled this meeting.
Oh my God.
They said the main sticking point, and this should not be a surprise to anyone, the main sticking point is TV deals. And this is the whole reason why there's a college football playoff. That's why there's need for, or a want for expansion, because there's so much money to be made with the TV deals in this college football playoff. The problem is, just like you would assume, there are different agendas from every direction. The universities have different agendas. The conferences all have different agendas. The TV partners of those entities have different agendas. There are conferences that have their own networks. There are universities that have their own TV networks, as in Notre Dame and Texas would be those. So you can see we're finally reaching a point where college football needs to basically make a major change to get that money that they all know is out there to make that happen. We've reached a point where they can't make an agreement. And I think what that's going to force is what I'm going to call the College Football League. We currently have a loosely formed organization just called the College Football Playoff, which as I mentioned, has these boards of university presidents and conference commissioners, but there's no real agreement, and they weren't even able to vote to even think to have an agreement this week. The way they're going to do that eventually, and mind you, this will happen at some point. It has to happen. There's too much money to be made by all these people. They're going to have to find an agreement. They're going to have to find common ground somehow. The way they're going to do that is they're going to form a league, just like professional teams formed leagues, decades ago to form the National Football League or the Major League Baseball or whatever. These entities are going to come together and realize there's too much money to be made to not get along somehow. There's going to have to be sacrifices here and there, but they will all get together at some point. The way I think it's going to coalesce is into a 4-conference league made up of 16 teams. And I mentioned this a few weeks ago, and this is not a revolutionary comment. A lot of people have thought this through and figured out where this is going, but I thought it was appropriate to bring it up this week just because you've seen how the process is working so far and that they can't get even into a room into Chicago tonight to discuss these things. So a new plan has to come about. And that's where I think this 16-team division / conference, 4 groups. It's going to be, you can call it the North, South, East, and West, but essentially you can keep those brand names, the Southeastern Conference, the ACC, the Big 10, and the Pac-12, as we've seen the Big 12 go away. Those 4 will be those conferences, and what you'll have is 64 teams in this college football league. I did a little bit of math and looked around, and essentially, if you take the 5 conferences as they exist now, the 5 power conferences, there are 65 universities in those. So one team is going to have to be out, and I'm not going to say it's Notre Dame, because Notre Dame will most likely just become part of the ACC or just become part of the East, whatever it ends up being called. I think that's kind of a no-brainer. I think what's going to happen is one of the Big 12 teams is going to be left out in the musical chairs. That's going to happen over the next couple of years as that conference dissolves and the remaining teams scramble to get into one of the Power 4 conferences now. Eventually each will have 16 teams. I think the odd team out, the odd university out, most likely will be somebody like Kansas. And we can talk about how you get into this. I'm going to bring this up in future podcasts, but I think what you'll have then is each conference will have 2 divisions, East and West, North and South, however you want to break it down, how they break it down now, of 8 teams, and you play 7 conference games in your division. Then you have, 4 possibility of 4 other regular season games where you play a rival in your conference, cross division rival, and maybe this playoff league can force you to play another top conference team outside of your conference, which I think would be really fucking cool and be good for business, good for fans, good for college football. That would lead to 8 division winners at the end of the season. And there's your 8-team playoff right there. If you want to have a wild card, you could have 4 wild card teams, the best records of the remaining non-division winners. There's your 12-team playoff right there. I think it's too simple. It's a simple idea that is too lucrative not to happen. I think that's the natural way things should occur. I don't think it's going to happen quickly, considering where we're at this moment and how nobody can agree on anything. But again, my point is, this is the simplest plan to a shit ton of money, and they're going to find a way to get to that money somehow. A little teaser for future episodes. I do want to say teams like Kansas and the mid-major conferences aren't going to be completely left out of this, as I want to propose a promotion and relegation system, much like European soccer has, where a team from the MAC or other lower divisions, if you win that, you could move into the Big Ten at some point. And the worst teams of the power conferences actually get relegated down to the MAC or the Sun Belt Conference or whatever it is. So I'll get deeper into that. That's a revolutionary idea that I think would be 20 years down the road, possibly, because I don't think a whole lot of people would be in favor of that right away. But just a little teaser there. We are in fascinating times in college football, and I love it. There's so much upheaval with the power vacuum that's left by the incompetent leadership of the NCAA. There's so much money being made right now, and they are desperately looking into how to make more. And we are going to see more than 4 teams in the playoffs soon enough. I would like to see 6. I think there's probably an easier path to see 6 sooner than this 12-team proposal you heard about. But we'll see. We'll see if my idea comes to fruition. But that is all of my thoughts. Those are my thoughts for college football this week. I don't know. Did you have anything else that I steamrolled over like I did your Notre Dame thoughts?
No, just the Brian Kelly situation. So
all right, we are through 4 weeks of the college football season. I think in week 6 we should start our own top 6 countdown for our ranking system. The Limp 6, as I like to call it, going forward. Are you ready for that on week 6? You think that's a good idea, or should we wait till week 8 when the college football playoff rankings come out?
I think everyone who's in the top 10 right now will have played by week 6, because you've got that.
Are there any bye weeks coming up?
No, I don't think so. And you've got that. We'll have seen the Iowa Penn State matchup by then.
Okay.
So I think everyone will have played some worthy opponents to where we can start assessing this. The biggest issue again is still going to be like the Big Ten, because now that they've finished the 3 easy freaking games, the layup games they play before they start their conference play for the most part. It's all conference play within the Big Ten. So,
well, I mean, Michigan State's already had 2 conference games, so they shifted that a little bit. And we've got Michigan, Wisconsin this weekend, so it's kicking in. And you mentioned the Iowa Penn State game. That's when is that 2 weeks?
October 3rd.
Oh, that's this weekend.
No, the next weekend, the 9th.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's 9th is a Saturday. So
9th is Saturday. Yeah.
Nice. So we are ramping up. So I think that's perfect. We'll start our Limp 6 after that, after we've got some real data points and we're not being hypocrites about ranking our teams before they've actually put a resume out there.
Exactly.
Well, cool. That's all I've got for this week. You can catch us on social media at Limp Ditkas. You can check out all sorts of merchandise. I've been adding all sorts of t-shirts, stickers, coffee mugs, hoodies, of all sorts of things on our website at limpditkas.com. And you can catch this podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So with that, I'm going to declare this dagger time. We out. Peace.
Peace.